My introduction to Islam in Pakistan, I shouldn't say introduction, but my experience with Islam in Pakistan wasn't very enriching. I don't think that I learned the essence of Islam until I came here and I read some Western converts and their works. And they were mostly grounded in Sufism. To me, it was a transformational moment where I found God to be an entity to be loved, not necessarily feared. So I went on a journey reading, and I eventually thought that I should put my thoughts on paper. That's where I started my first book.
So, I read your book, The Meeting of the Seas.
No, my first book was this one.
Which one is that?
Yeah.
A perspective on the signs of Al-Quran through the
Yes.
prism of the heart.
Okay. So, Dr. Saab, go ahead, tell us what inspired you to choose the topic or story behind your book.
Yeah, but I must take maybe little more than time he has taken, because I wrote in 3 different issues. When I was teaching the master's students in my university, I found that to make them understand, I had to refer about 7 books or 8 books, and they were all expensive and they were not affordable, and the student had no access. And I was teaching crystallography and crystal chemistry. The best thing I thought was I should get them all together, what I'm teaching, put them as a book, so that they can just be happy. And now this served the students of engineering. You know, crystal is something which all of you are now living with comfort. It's because of the crystal. It is a crystal that has the properties which is giving you all the comforts of life. It's such an importance. The technology is the student, the engineer, everybody needs it. So I wrote this book. That was the inspiration. The second thing was totally different. I was planted into a highly turmoil, disturbed area called Kashmir. Kashmir is a challenge. So I went there, I was called, and I knew nothing about administration, but the experience I had and somehow the changes that came there, I thought I should write it down. Otherwise, nobody will know what happened between 2001 and 4. And the idea was not to publicize my work, but to record for the future generation. That was the inspiration. The third one was, after doing all this, when I landed here, I thought that anyway, when you come to America after retirement, you become actually loaded with free time.
Inshallah, yeah.
So then I thought that I should write my biography. So we started from a barefoot boy. So that's why I wrote this, The Rise of a Barefoot Boy.
So it's about himself. So Dr. Saab was a
That was
barefoot boy.
inspiration for me to
Now,
write.
and then he went on to become Vice Chancellor for 3 universities in India. So that's a good accomplishment and it's an inspiration to all of us, Dr. Saab. Gulrez Khan, tell us about your inspiration to write the book. Because when did you start and all those things?
Yeah. So I always wanted to be an author. Like as I was growing up, I was not interested in computers. So, and I remember like I was having this conversation with my elder brother, like he's 2 years older than me. And I said, I want to be an author. And he said, Barkhurdar, we need to pay off the loans. And I said, okay. So I just followed his footprints. He took maths, I took maths. He took computers, I took computers. And Alhamdulillah, like landed over here. So now after 20 years in the industry, like this is when I got to merge the 2 things together, right? So here I work as a data scientist, and I thought my wife, like she's homeschooling our kids. So I was having this conversation with her, and I said, we don't have any book like this where you have got data presented in a way, in a form of stories or something, and maybe I should write that book. And she said yes. And that is like, if you have a partner and she's like encouraging you, a lot of our dreams die just when like you say it for the first time and you get a no, right? But here like she said yes, and I said okay. And the other thing I wanted to do is like, I have different intersections. So data, Muslim, that is an intersection. So here I wanted to write a book where our kids can identify themselves. So this is not a religious book, but again, here this is where our kids can see themselves. So here there is a person looking like me and my daughter, and this is a realistic fiction, so stories that happen in our daily life, I translated them into a content of every chapter, and through that I'm teaching this new technology like data science. Right? So this is how I started.
Thank you. Sister Farad, tell us, how did you get inspired, start writing, and your profession was a software engineer, and what changed you to write books?
Yeah, so the first was because what you said resonated a lot with me. I grew up in India, but I had a different idea about Islam, and again, the same thing, converts had a lot of effect. When I moved to the US, and converts had a lot of effect on me. And I think Allah Ta'ala had already planned this journey. One after the other, things started happening. I was I never thought I would leave corporate. But a lot of things happened, children, and then, as you said, right, that you wrote a book and you felt that this is not my legacy. I also had that kind of moment when I was working in corporate. I felt like if I leave my job, there's no dent that's going to happen there, but then I'm leaving my children behind at home. I have more impact, like the most impact on my children's life. So kind of there was a lot of resonation when I was listening to you. And that's when I changed my ways and alhamdulillah started exploring. As Rumi said, right, what you seek seeks you. So this is the meaning that I was looking for, like being present in my children's life and providing them with the education which I felt I missed. Like growing up, I don't think I had any Muslim heroes to look up to. So this is how, there are a lot of factors that came into play, but this is how this book came about. It started as a homeschool project, and as I mentioned, that I researched a lot about her, and I felt that Fatima Samarkandi needs to be known. And my husband had already authored the book. So when I was actually researching, he said you should put it in a book form. Alhamdulillah, because he had done all the heavy lifting, it was easy for me to kind of go through all the phases of writing, which you know. And as Dr. Saab mentioned, that you wrote 3 different books, right? So it was all depending on the phase of life you were in. So likewise, I'm in a phase of life where my children are my priority, educating them is my priority, and this I felt is a means of educating our children about our proud history through the life, through the biography of a scholar.
Thank you. So going back to Saeed Bhai again, can you walk us through a typical day in your writing and how has it changed? When do you write? After Fajr, after Zuhr, or in the night, or when you wake up in the middle of the night and you write sentences like this? What is your writing schedule?
Well, in anything that you do in life, you've got to apply yourself. Writing it's not necessarily putting pen to paper. It is also thinking. It is also reading someone else's thoughts. It's also looking at a painting. It's also going out in nature. So, as an author is basically putting his inner thoughts out to the world. And you have to be aware of the world around you. You have to be sensitized to the world around you. And it's a 24/7 process. If you have a thought that you think you want to capture, these days you pull out your iPhone and you put it into notes so that you don't forget. And what is so easy these days is that you can put your thoughts on the computer and go back and embed something in, delete something out. That's the luxury you didn't have before. So writing is a pretty easy thing as long as you are at it continuously, and there's no such thing as a writer's schedule.
So whenever you think about it, you just jot down something or
Whenever there's an urge to write, you write.
Okay. Dr. Saab, in your days when there was no iPhone and all, how did you manage to compile the thoughts and put in the paper?
Well, you are talking of iPhone. When I was a researcher on crystallography, there was no calculator even in the United States of America. Those are the times where we accomplished something. So no comparison. To me, writing is an emotional outburst which comes out irrespective of the time. For me, I'm also an artist. I do modern art. So it becomes like an art, sometimes in the midnight, sometimes early morning. So it's writing or painting. It has the same behavior for me. But the point is, if you give up, stop, then you are gone. So my friend, Dr. Sheikh Ali, you must have heard of him, he always said, if you want to write something, write at least one sentence a day. Don't give a break. Even if you're busy going for a marriage, still sit down and write one sentence and then go. Then there is continuity.
Thank you. This is what we want to hear to inspire ourselves to get into writing. So thank you so much. Gulrez bhai, go ahead and explain.
Yeah. So again, like as you said, writing is a form of therapy, right? So as a kid, I used to write diaries, like in my college, like at the end of the day. I had a lot of time. I am an introvert, so I don't talk a lot. These days, you might be seeing me talking, but again, like personality is introvert. So I try to write diaries, like not these days anymore, spending time with the kids. But that's how like the writing thing started. And now, like as Brother Saeed mentioned, right? So you always think of the different things, like even right now, how you are sitting, how would you describe this room, right? How was the audience? If you are like, I've written it at airports. I already have idea of my second book, though I have not compiled the chapters, but I know like what I want, right? And for me right now, like this series, like drawing data with kids, it's kind of a easy way because I'm making it as a realistic fiction. So kind of capturing the memories of like our daily lives, right? So that's how it is.
Thank you. Sister Farhat, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so in terms of timing, as I mentioned, I'm a busy mother and my hands are full. So it's usually when I'm by myself and my kids are in bed. I think that's the best time for me when I write. But my 13-year-old, she comes handy when I have to proofread my book, alhamdulillah. So it's both, but I usually prefer when it's a quiet time, and as both the panelists mentioned, it's again like what's in your heart, you want to put it out. What's important for you, you want to put it out. So I think that's important. And writing is something which is very important in our family as well. Like all my 3 kids, even my 5-year-old, she has a journal. They all have a journal, and I always encourage them to write something. Anytime we go on a field trip or a family trip, I always ask them, okay, what was the 3 most wonderful things that you had? And then I make them write. And my 5-year-old, she draws. So that's how kind of inculcating love for learning and also capturing the memory, also reliving the moments. I think writing is a very powerful tool for them. And when they go back and they read the journals that they wrote 2 years ago, they feel so good and everything comes fresh in their mind. So.
Wonderful. Saeed bhai.
Allow me to just,
Yeah.
being on the edge, allow me the luxury to add something to my thought.
Okay.
There's nothing we have over these guys on the other side. You know, expression is innate to us. The Quran says, Allah mahul bayan. Bayan means expression. It just doesn't mean verbal speech. So expression is native to all of us. The only thing that we did is we said, okay, we'll keep adding to something until we got a critical mass, and we said, okay, there's something here that we can productize. So it's being consistent and trying to achieve a critical mass, and then going back to that critical mass and revising it. That's what gives you a book.
Thank you, Saeed bhai. So many good points to learn. You know, emotional outburst, and then writing from your heart, what comes in your heart, putting on the paper. So this is an inspiration for us to start writing. And I have two more questions. In fact, when you're writing, who are you writing for? Who are your audience? Do you have your audience in mind? Who is going to read your book?
There's a mother sitting here. I've
Okay.
always written for my daughters.
So go ahead and explain who are you writing for? Is there a particular audience or person in your mind?
A man is most earnest when he is teaching or communicating something to his kids. And given my subject, ikhlas was the essence. And in front of me I have two daughters. Everything that I've written, my legacy was not what I pass on to the world, but what I pass on to my two daughters and their children.
Okay.
So I had no doubt in my mind who I was writing for.
Okay. Thank you, Said Bhai. So you're writing for your children so they can read and start writing. They also
Well,
can.
that's
start
an expression of my class. I'm not saying that you're not going to buy my book.
I bought already. I have it. Okay, Dr. Saab, who are your audience? Who do you think
Well,
when you write?
you can see that the audience for this book are students of technology, right?
Right.
You won't read, I'm sure. Dr. Saab will not read it. Only a student who is looking for it will read it.
Yes.
Now, this book is a memoir. I'm leaving behind a legacy and a story which nobody will tell you. In a disturbed area where there was militancy and the university was closed down, and the challenge was for me to reopen the university, rebuild the university, and restore the academics. That I achieved in 4 years. Allah gave me the strength. Nobody would have done it. They called me all the way from south to Kashmir.
Yes.
So I thought I should leave this behind, what actually happened with me. But then you have a big life actually as an artist, as a social worker. I've been a social worker. I'm the founder of Muslim Education Society, Mysore. In 1974, I started that. Today it has number of schools and a college. I'm just founder and it's there. So I thought everything should be put on record. So I wrote my autobiography. That's Rise of a Barefoot Boy. So there are different topics meant for different audiences.
Thank you. Gulrez Bhai?
This particularly, if the younger generation reads it, of the today's time, if they read, which normally they don't read, if they read it, it's going to be a big inspiring lesson to them as to how you can survive in a society like Indian society, a biased Hindu society. Still you can reach the top in spite of all the hurdles. That's the lesson I have learned.
Thank you. Gulrez Bhai, go ahead. Who are your audience?
So the audience is like everything you mentioned, right? So Brother Saeed mentioned he's writing for his daughters. So I write for the kids so that they can understand easily. And then Brother Jalees, like he mentioned about everyone should know about it, right? So here the same thing, right? So I wanted let me give an example, right? So this book, this is an award-winning book, Alhamdulillah, being translated in German, in Arabic, and Portuguese. Now, when I tried to publish this in India, the publisher, he was a Muslim guy, but then he said, Gulrez, I would suggest make this book neutral, right? So here, this looking like a Muslim thing, so people will not buy it. And I said, I don't want to change that. Even if less copies are being bought, I wanted to also give a message that, hey, this is a normal Muslim family, right? When you hear about the Muslims in India, we hear a lot about the puncharwalas, right? So the people are not educated, things like that. But I wanted to write a technical book in a way that people can see this is a normal Muslim family, right? A normal Muslim family living in the US, and this is how the normal life is. So I am writing for everyone, right? So even my non-Muslim colleagues or people who might have not seen about a Muslim family, and they see that, hey, this is the educated people, and that's how I am writing about it.
Very good. Thank you. Sister Farhad?
Yeah, when you're asking the audience, right? I think the question to me, it sounds like the inspiration, right? Who inspires you? So for sure, my children and meaningful education. I think that's the inspiration. But again, when I'm writing something, and if my why is my children, then it applies to, I feel, everyone in the community, every family in the community for whom history, our own history matters, who want to be proud in their Muslim identity. So basically trying to build a strong, positive Muslim identity through our own stories. So that was my why, and I would say, for me, the audience in my mind to begin with were my children, but then it kind of, as I wrote, then I felt like this message has to go out to every Muslim family that cares about their history.
Sister Farhad's a proud father is here. आपके अबू हैं?
Ji.
Yes, he's here, visiting from
India.
India.
Yeah.
So I have one more question, Sister Farhad. Do you know who Fatima Samarkandi is? She wrote a book about her. This one. Go ahead and tell
Yeah.
who.
So that's the thing. So many people ask me, why did I choose this personality for Fatima Samarkandi? And I always say that there are many Muslim heroes who are well known and celebrated. Like most of us might know Ibn Sina, right? We might know Al-Jazari. Even people know about Fatima Fehli, who founded the oldest university in Morocco. But there are so many Muslim heroes who are not well known. And Fatima Samarkandi's life has so much to offer, irrespective of the age or the phase of the life. I mean, if you are a new parent or new couple, or even for parenting for children, for everyone, there's so much to offer. Like when somebody is a hero, they become hero because of the people in their life, right? The family and the factors and the environment. There's so much to learn from. So that's why, I mean, she was a scholar in 12th century, a remarkable jurist, and even became advisor to King Nuruddin Mahmud Zengi, one of the greatest kings in our history. And she was an advisor to him in 12th century. And I always feel that in West, specifically, we are so obsessed with this idea of first woman, this and that, while in our own history we have so many of these examples, but unfortunately we don't know about them because textbooks and curriculums haven't done justice to Muslim civilization. I mean, we have been bombarded with so many heroes from West, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? We do learn courage and brilliance and leadership, so many things. But what is missing, I feel, is piety. Rooted in our faith, being grounded in our faith, that is missing. And that's why I feel more of these personalities need to be known to the community. And yeah, so she inspired me, her life inspired me, and alhamdulillah, trying to apply the parenting that she got in my own life as well. So when you read the book, you will know, I mean, that whatever I'm saying would start making sense.
I love the way she opens her book. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful young children.
Yeah. So go ahead and read about Fatima Samarkandi. I read, and I also read her bio in the background. She is an advisor, and she's a daughter of a scholar.
Daughter of a scholar.
And when she got married, she married her father's student.
Yeah.
Yeah. And her dowry was the book written by her husband.
Yeah, so those are the things which inspired
So these
me
are
so
amazing
much.
things.
Yeah, I
and she
mean,
went on to become an advisor in the government and all those. Very impressive hero. I think you should all read and have your children also read about this.
Right, as I mentioned, right, even for newly married couples, her husband was a scholar of repute. He was called Malikul Ulama, like king of scholars. Even then, he never failed to recognize his wife's upper bearing and always consulted her anytime he faced any tricky issue. So it was this faith, this strong understanding of Deen that made him so humble and so respectful, right? I mean, even in modern day, we are still struggling for women right and this and that, but in our history, we have so many practical life lessons from people like Fatima Samarkandi and her husband Al-Kasani. So, I mean, any great people, they definitely have lessons for everyone. We just need an eye to kind of read.
This
it
lady
that
is
way.
different from Fatima Fehri.
Fatima
Is
Fehri. Yes,
she-
that's what I mentioned. That Fatima Fehri, as you said, right? You know about her. She's the one who founded the oldest university. But Fatima Samarkandi, she was in Samarkand.
Yeah, the
And
great
then
thing about her is she founded that university in a mosque. A big
Yeah.
lesson to the today's Tablighi people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is from the 12th century.
Yeah.
What is it called? Tashkent? Where is it?
Samarkand,
Samarkand. Now today is
Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan. Okay. So I have two more questions. Make it short, then we'll open up for audience, please. So, do you, okay, with the today's digital distractions and all those things, do you think people will read books or they were looking for something on the electronic media? Saeed bhai.
Well, I think people are reading less for sure. It is easier to look at something,
Watching more, reading less?
watching more, and watching more is more entertaining. Unless you are roomy. So yeah, I mean the world will change. Good thing you have audiobooks. So I think it is all. I've had several people ask me, well, do you have an audio version of your book? So people will read less, of course. The world is changing.
Okay. Dr. Saab, what do you think?
What is the question?
Question that with today's invention of all the electronic media, iPhones and electronic versions of the books, do you think people read paper written books?
No, but my first observation is the curiosities and the urge to learn something more and go deeper, penetrate deeper, is shrinking enormously and very fast. So there is a lot of difference between the generation, because I belong to many of you belong to the generation who have seen 78, 79 years of evolution of the human tendency in this part of the world. So it's completely shrinking. Now everyone wants a shortcut, a quick fix, and a quick answer, and not necessarily deep.
Right answer.
I am not sure if it's right, because he doesn't have that inquisitiveness to penetrate into the answer, because that's why WhatsApp is surviving. WhatsApp University vice chancellors are many of us. So they just go on forwarding things. We don't have the time to just even fact check. So this is today, and the youth of today.
Okay.
So,
Gulbez bhai?
yeah. So I remember like when I came to the US for the first time, I called my mom and I said, "Ammi, like यहाँ पर apple खराब ही नहीं होता." Right? So apple, it doesn't go bad, right? So I bought an apple. I went to India. I came back, and it was still there. And then I got married.
Your
And
fridge?
no, just outside, like in a couple of weeks.
They put
So-
wax on it.
Yeah, so I got married and then my wife said, this is all wax. And then we started going to farmer's market, right? So now the analogy over here is, you will see a lot of people in this media looking into this phones and other stuff, but we are still going to farmer's market, right? So there will be some audience which will go to the books. And I think as more and more we are inundated in the screens, we will find people going back to the books, right? Or maybe this is my optimistic self.
Yeah.
I think you're right. People are migrating back to books now. Farhad?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to everyone. Actually, the shallowness is increasing and depth, like going in depth of everything, is kind of declining for sure. And people definitely, for me, I know, like, because I work with children through our homeschool co-op, teaching them to read, it feels like a skill. Although it was something that was natural because of the screens. So for sure, that is a challenge, but as my husband mentioned, right? So when a new technology comes, everyone is in awe of the technology, everyone wants to use it and everything like that. But eventually then we start to realize the drawbacks of it. And then there are people who are still mindful in their life choices and they want to go back to their roots. As my husband gave a good example of we going to farmers market. Like I no more go to supermarkets to buy my groceries for the same reason, because I know everything that looks good is not good, right? Going back to the roots. So there will be people, and there are already talks going on about the effects of using screens. Even if you are doing educational thing, right? It does affect your brain. There is this actual term called brain rot. So people are realizing it will be slow for sure, but people who are mindful, they will definitely pick the book to read, because there's nothing like sitting by yourself and having a physical copy of a book to read than reading on screen. There's a huge difference, even in terms of what you retain from the book, what you learn from the book. There's a huge difference. So
Can I
people
add
will
little
realize.
to that?
Yes.
It is like, they say when you eat with fork or with fingers, the taste starts with the fingertips. You taste the food more. It's exactly what she's saying.
Yeah.
Reading digitally or holding a book and reading. You feel that you are reading something. My granddaughter, you see, it also depends on how the parents groom them. I think she has read more than 150 or 200 books already.
MashaAllah.
And she is just out into the university.
So
But this is the world of effective sound bites, not substance. If you want to go viral, you better come up with something
Instagram.
inflammatory or
Implementary on the Instagram.
and a good sound bite,
So this is my
like MAGA.
last question. It's a two-part question. Then we can ask the public. So Saeed bhai, how many books have you released? What is the upcoming book? And then, how intensively do you research when you write the book? How many books? What is the next book coming up, if it's coming?
Well, if I'm going to be like Dr. Tareen, I'll say 4 books. I'll count my technical book too.
Okay. The 4 books released by Saeed bhai.
But
Yeah. What's coming up?
I don't know.
Okay. What's in your mind? Nothing?
Right now, I've got a big blank. Yeah.
Okay. And then how intensive do you make research when you write the books? Are you just coming from your own
I'm
mind? or-
consumed. Once my last book, it's not a book. It was my own study. It was me trying to engage with the Quran. So it was an obsession. And I thought I would never finish it, but for whatever reason, I did publish it, and it was so intense that it's like I think I said it somewhere else, that it's like going through a postpartum. You feel a sense of emptiness, and I don't know what is next.
Okay. So in case you don't know, Saeed Malik also wrote about Surah Kahf.
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah. He, is it what this is?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's about Surah Kahf. It's a very good book to read. So when, Dr. Saab, how many books you wrote? What is coming up? And how intensively do you research?
I have so far only 4 or 5 books. None of them needed any
It's
research.
not only 4 books. 4 books are pretty good.
He said so
The
far.
word only.
Okay.
Only for 4 or 5, including the other one, I don't have a copy, 5 books. But it did not call for any research. It was just what was inside me came out emotionally,
Okay.
busted and went into a systematic organization. Just an organization. Nothing needed. Because the experience of Kashmir did not require any research. My teaching did not require any research. And my story, also I did not even have a dairy. So it is out of memory I have written this.
Okay.
Now you asked, the second question is on the forthcoming books.
Yes.
2 things I have been working in my mind. One is the American dream. I have my own thoughts on that. This may not be liked by many of you who are here, because the America of yesterday and America of today, many things.
Yes.
The second thing, which I have already written half, and I'm scared to publish. You know, you have heard of love jihad in India. There is a law. There is a law made in some of the BJP ruled states. Love jihad, if a Muslim marries a Hindu woman and then she converts, they are calling it as a jihad to convert the thing. They have brought legislations into that. So somehow I felt that let me experiment my story writing skills also. I started writing stories of love between a Muslim man and a Hindu woman, which happens naturally, not with any jihad motive. So I have written already 6 or 7 stories, but if I publish them, in India they will sue me for sedition. They will sue me for sedition and they put me behind the bars. So it's still on my computer, and I have shown that even the Dalit loving a Muslim, or a Muslim man
Yeah, so
loving a
there's so
Dalit
many
girl.
combinations, Dalit loving a Brahmin.
Essentially, I want to show that Muslim falls in love with a woman, irrespective of she is Hindu or something. It is a natural process,
Right.
and ultimately she chooses to be Muslim because Islam projects itself in such a way, it
Yes.
influences her. That's what my stories have shown, but I have not published. I don't
Thank
have
you.
the courage to publish.
Gulrez Bhai?
Yeah, so it's about the research. I think it comes more from the heart, like the storytelling piece. As I've mentioned, like this is kind of a realistic fiction. So that's how like I'm trying to capture these different movements. But again, like at the heart of it, like I want to ensure like there is a Muslim angle which is also presented with these books. Another book which I'm working on, like this is going to be a series, inshallah. So multiple things. One of the chapter for the next book, I haven't spoken to like even Farhat about it, is about we going to the immigration, right? So every time I remember every time I come from India, all my colleagues were let go, but just with my name is Gulrez Khan, they will take me to additional inquiry, right? How can I add that as a chapter in the book, right? So those are the things, like those are the movements I'm wanting to capture and also teaching about data at the same time. The other book which I'm working on is about Muslim data, so which is again data visualization, capturing the Muslim things, right? One poster which I've created is around the different surahs of Quran, and that's where like you've got it's based on like the size of the shape is based on the number of verses in each surah. So we'll have that poster at MCA soon, and maybe we can have donate something over here at Evergreen.
inshallah.
Inshallah.
That's very good. When is the poster coming out?
So I have the poster at home. Like I had that at the ICNA conference, but
Okay,
inshallah
okay.
we'll get it soon.
Yeah, by the way, the ICNA conference was very, very good. And there were some 4,000 people. And Gulrez Khan and Sister Farhat had their stall there. And there was a big crowd coming to the stall. Sister Farhat, what is your next book? And did you take a lot of research to write the book?
Yeah, so I am that kind of a person. I research a lot before I put forth anything. And so even for this book, I did a lot of research, and alhamdulillah I was able to find information. At Al-Maghrib Institute, they have a course called Torchbearer where they talk about all these torchbearers from our history. And then I was interacting with a lot of local scholars as well. And there's a local scholar, Ustada Shamira, you might know her. Alhamdulillah, I had the privilege. She had my back when I was writing the book. So definitely, I think, especially for me, because I was writing about a real person and into a children's book form. So I had this challenge of making it interesting for the children while also sticking to the facts, right? So because I was writing about a real person, definitely I did like extensive research as much as possible. When I felt that, okay, this is it, I'm not finding any more information about her, that's when I kind of started to put this in the book form. And you asked about the next book, so I don't know what will inspire me next. I like to read a lot about our history because I think growing up, that was a missing piece in me. And when I want to educate my children, I want to fill in for that. So I don't know who will inspire me next. It's not about writing more and more books. It's about leaving a legacy, right? So when I write about Fatima Samarkandi, she passed away many years ago, but sometimes I think, is she getting some ajr in her cover, like as so many people are knowing about her legacy. So shedding light on things that matter. I don't know when that would happen. When that happens, inshallah, I'll have.
You know,
that
this morning we have a coffee group here. I suggested to them one interesting topic. Each one of you write a short story
Yes.
where I met my wife. I said, let us edit it, it becomes a beautiful reading.
Yeah.
Or how I landed in America.
Yeah.
Just write one 5-page, 10-page story.
Yes.
If you edit it, it becomes a beautiful best reader.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
to add to that, actually, I really like this, the way you have written the biography and everything, right? So I have a 13-year-old, she likes writing, and last 2 years I have been working with her, and I tell her to write about her trips to India. And my parents visit here sometimes, and my husband's parents. So all those memories, I make her to write. So it's like now a big document. Inshallah, I mean, that's in my head that so there are a lot of lessons that children learn when they visit my village, when they talk to my parents, to their grandparents, so many relatives, right? So, inshallah, planning to have like a biography through my daughter with all these memories and, all these stories that she has. So.
Sure.
Saeed, brother Hafiz Khan Bhai is not here, but I just want to say a few things about his work. He's been writing these translations for many years now, maybe 10, 15 years, and I'm a big fan of his translation, and I read his translations very frequently, and really helps me understand the meaning of the sentence. And he also teaches class every Sunday in the morning, and I really enjoy his class, whether in person or on Facebook. Sis, I have one last question. I heard you're selling this book at a discount to the public here. How much is the book?
Yeah, I mean, as you already said, discount, so this is 25.
25. 25. I urge everybody to buy a book. I'm going to buy this. And this is a very, very good book. And then, Mukesh bhai, ye kitna ka? How much is this?
So this is $30, but if you want discount, I'll give it for 25 as well.
$25. This is also good for children and grandchildren. Okay. I'll open up questions from the audience. Please go ahead. Any questions? Mukhtar bhai?
Yes.
I have the open copy. I opened the copy.
Yeah.
Feel free to open the copies. These are all open.
too? No, done.
This is open. Yes.
Mukhtar, what's your question?
You can Zell or
I have read almost, I haven't read sister's book yet, but I have read actually your drawing data.
yeah.
It's very catchy,
Yeah.
right? And so when I was reading it, and then the title says with kids. I said, wow, I mean, if this is for kids, some things were very inspiration for me too, the way you're trying to visualize the graphs and those are the things actually in our corporate world, we try to represent the data similar way.
Yeah.
But the concepts that you bring, how to put together data, I think was beautifully done,
Jazakallah.
right? And giving that inspiration from kids started from there. I think it will open their mind going forward, right? So I think then also I would say the way AI is coming in the data science, how you are, the way I look at data is there was a saying that data is like a gold mine, right? The gold is there, and when you start digging initially,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dirt comes with it, right? But it's the refining process in terms of getting to the golden nuggets to the extent that it becomes a Fort Knox and
Yeah.
becomes the most secure place on earth. And this is where, and I think your book is sort of leading to that, how you refine the data to, I think it also ties with, my question is more on when you're looking at, saying earlier, the value of the reading the book in your hands versus the digital medium. I don't think it's diminishing that value. I mean, you know, I travel quite a bit, and in the plane I see, you know, people used to have the book in their hand and flipping the books. Now they have Kindle, right? Or they are listening. It's the same thing. Maybe the impact. When you're listening, may not be that much, but the Kindle probably does have a. It doesn't have the touch and feel of the flipping the books, right? So sort of comments. Actually, I didn't have any question there, but just share those thoughts. Thank you.
Any questions? By the way, Sister Farhad gets invited to different masajid to talk about her book to the children, weekend Islamic school. She does a good job. The moment you open, this book is comprised with 3 or 4 people together, illustrator, editor.
Yes.
Yeah, so see, the moment you open the book, it will take you back to the 12th century in the Samarkand. Okay, and that's the beauty of this book, and it gets so interesting as you turn pages.
Yeah, you mentioned
So,
about research, right? So even for illustrating, there was a lot of research that I did, like how Samarkand would have looked like,
Yeah,
even
The carpets.
the buildings, the carpets and everything. So my illustrator, I said carpet, so he made a carpet. I'm like, no, this doesn't look like a Persian carpet. So please make it look like Persian. So yeah, I mean, I try to put my heart out writing this book.
And
but for
fun
illustration.
fact is, like, I was illustrating her book earlier, and then she fired me. She said, like, you're not doing a good job. So she found another person in Indonesia. So I think that's
Oh, the illustrator come from Indonesia?
right.
So see how how did you find the illustrator in Indonesia?
Talking to a lot of people.
See, it
and-
takes a lot of time, a lot of research to find the right people to complete the book.
My dad.
What आपके क्या राय है? What do you suggest to the writers and all those things? You have your proud daughter who's written the book. What is your suggestion?
मैं तो कभी सोचा नहीं था कि बेटा इतना ही होगा। लोग बाप के नाम से बेटी जानते हैं, हमको बाप को बेटी के नाम से हमको जाना।
Good. Thank you. Yeah. So, any questions?
Actually, I will for Dr. Saab. I did read your book, The Barefoot Child. Which one? This one?
Yeah.
The other one.
The barefoot.
You read it? Yeah, I read it. Yeah. So I think if you can touch on a few things, I feel it's very inspirational in terms of, it's of course your biography, you go through so many hurdles, so much pushback, so many challenges in life. If you were to highlight 1 or 2 things, the most difficult ones that you have to deal with, that you have for all of us.
Okay, you see, first of all, those of you who are conversant with the society in India. India is essentially a Hindu domination and about 15% of Muslims. The fact is that if a Muslim wants to come up, achieve, he can achieve. But if you say that Muslim alone has hurdles, I don't agree. It's such a diverse society where there are Brahmins, there are Dalits, there are backwards, there are Lingayats, there are Hindus, there are Vaishnavas and all kinds of things. Each one cuts the other's throat.
Yes, that is correct.
You must understand that. So Muslim is, it may happen that somebody will argue if it comes to Muslim, they all join together. That is also not true. Many a times Muslim benefits if there are 2 communities are fighting. For example, that is how I became a professor. There are 2 major communities for competing. And the third, what do you call in English? कुछ वर्ड है इसके लिए, बीच में भूल जाता है।
दो की लड़ाई में
Kebab में हड्डी।
Remind me of story of two cats.
You know, it actually so happened that I was picked up as a professor at the age of, I was only, I think in 1977, I became a professor, the youngest professor in the University of Mysore, a Muslim. So I'm saying is, yes, there are difficulties, yes, there are oppositions, but what you have to, there is an art of living in India. It is not applicable to all. If you go on saying that, oh, we are hurt, we are done this, we are against us, you will never achieve anything. If you learn the art of living tactfully, hikmat is also Islam. Hikmat से काम लेना, काम कैसे निकालना, कहाँ से घुसना, कहाँ से निकलना. You can still climb. I know the route is longer and the route is full of hurdles, but still you can reach if there is perseverance, faith in Allah. Efforts are continuous, you can achieve. That's all I can say in gist. That if somebody says, I'm a Muslim, I could not come up, he is a bluffer.
Just to follow up to that, is this because of the people's ill will, or this is just a competitive environment to survive? Right, because even here, it's not just in India, right? In every walk of life, everything that you do, you deal with so many different things.
It's
It becomes
there
competitive.
everywhere, you're right.
And when it's competitive, you just need to stand out to see how you can do things better. It's not necessarily it's an ill will.
Look, you see, for example, I had got a huge project for about 26 lakhs in 1981, 26 lakh of rupees. The entire department united to see that this project doesn't go through.
Yeah, I read that.
You read that. And they all held up the submission for a long time. And the government of India wanted to give me that project because I was a specialist on high pressure, crystal synthesis, artificial crystals. The others did not want it, so held it up. After 4 years, another vice chancellor who came, he is a Dalit. It is that Dalit vice chancellor, he said, take out his project, submit it. See, it is the Hindu who helps a Muslim. No Muslim in India will ever help a Muslim, take it from me. He is scared.
Yeah, that may be true to some extent, but there are people who help on.
To what extent? Why in my case, nobody helped me to become a vice chancellor or to become a professor. It's the Hindus who have, my guide is a Hindu, my co-authors are Hindu, I have published 100 papers, they are Hindus. My students are all Hindus except one Muslim. I produced 12 PhDs, 11 of them are Hindus. They all almost worship their guru. When they will come, they touch your feet. So there is a lot of things. It's a very complex society. So putting everything in one side is wrong. So
I do have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just have a follow-up
Do
over
others
here.
have questions?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up over here. So this is also a learning movement for all of us, right? So here, how can we help each other, right?
Yes.
So we are getting help from other communities, which is good. Like we have got good friends in the other communities. But over here, like there are so many learned people, how can we get our words out, right?
Yes.
So listening about Dr. Jali's story, right? Can I go and I tell it to more people? Can you invite more of these authors in other communities, right? Evergreen, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have this at Fajr time? Can't we have this in the evening where we have got
Yeah, Akhil, this is the
people who
message.
can
So we need to
listen
have
this, right?
Sister
So-
Farhat and Gulrez
so not just us,
come in
right?
the evening.
So I'm like feeling ashamed that I didn't know about like such learned people
Right.
before coming here, right? So it's just by chance like we are sitting on the same stage, but like he's so much accomplished, so much things that we can learn from them. So I think our community needs to help each other and spread the word out.
I think what I've gleaned from what Dr. Tareen always tried to say, and I've gleaned it over many years now. We meet every morning after Fajr. He's basically saying, don't use this as an excuse that there is a glass ceiling that is preventing you
Yes.
Right.
from achieving or
Yeah.
from being the best, no matter where you are. That's a lame excuse that, prejudice
Yeah.
held me down. Or he's saying, go for your flight.
Yeah.
There's no glass ceiling.
And another thing is, the community, our community has many problems because we don't educate the woman. I've been working all through my life, empower a woman through education. That is the fundamental thing today is required, which our ulama should go on speaking everywhere in every khutbah. Educate women, which we don't speak about.
Yeah, the other thing about empowering, I feel stories are very powerful. If you want to empower next generation, stories of real people, stories from our own history, very powerful to build the confidence. Honestly, I lacked it, like not as a person, but as a Muslim, which I discovered as I grew and as I went on this journey with my children. I homeschool them, but actually I am the one who's learning everything again, I feel. So I think stories are very important, our own stories, very powerful to empower.
So, yeah, Harun bhai.
So, in terms of, books are about self-expression, your own journeys, communicating them. My question to whoever wants to take it actually is, what do you feel about the power of transformation of a society and community using books? Do you feel in today's time, books have the power to transform a community, empower a community? Books, or I would say writing in general. And where do you see, your work playing in that? Because it is about what we have to do to transform.
So maybe I can start. So there is this thing about breaking the stereotype, right? All of us, like if you hear, we are trying to do in some shape or form, right? So when I talk about my book, like you've got a hijabi girl and a Muslim father sitting on the shelf of non-Muslim people over here on a coffee table, they'll have a conversation, right? Hey, this looks different, right? This girl looks different, why is she wearing this, right? So these are the things which are happening. I know like a lot of my colleagues, they are saying like, we are learning about your culture through this. I've got footnotes where I mention, okay, what is the meaning of paratha, right? So I've got a pattern, like paratha patterns is one of the chapter. What is dadi, right? So, and then like one of the chapter I also talk about the Lego pieces. My son was building Lego pieces, but then it breaks, and then we rebuild it. But then the footnote says, when I was writing this chapter, there was an earthquake which happened in Turkey and Syria, and millions of homes were lost. Wish it was as simple to bring that thing up, right? Now what happens is when people are reading these kind of books, they would like think, okay, this is how Muslims are, right? Or kind of bringing your own self. What she is doing with her book is also very interesting, right? As Dr. Jalise mentioned, empower women, right? But then it's just his words. But then when people read about Fatima Samarkandi, that how she was like in 12th century, she was advising King Nuruddin Zengi, and how her husband would go to her for counsel, how she was writing fatwas during that time. Now that inspires a 13-year-old that, hey, if someone was doing that in 12th century, why can't I imitate that, right? So I think the power is there, but again, one thing is to write the book, another is to take it to the places. So that's where like we need the community. Now we see like 20 people here, can we reach this to 200 or 220,000 people, right? And then go further from there.
Transformation in society was your question. See, transformation, first of all, it's a accumulation of an individual. For example, individual transformation I see next to me. He has transformed his entire approach to life. But the societal transformations are either through an external mass movement or through a realization of certain failures that the society as such feels that we should change. That change I'm seeing, for example, today is Muslims have started sending their children for education and higher education. that's going to transform the Muslim society. So what we need at that point of time is the push of the so-called influencers. Influencers to me are imams. If they push this, it's going to go fast because we are losing time. So transformation of society has to be through circumstances.
It's called R.K. Narayan.
Mm-hmm.
He has the best storytelling technique. We all went through the school. There was a story called Kannan Goes to Uttarakhand. Okay, this story is very popular in all the English story books, and it's about a girl going to Ooty, is a hill station in India called Uttarakhand. Used to call Uttarakhand. So tell your daughter to start with reading those and how he wrote that story. And the last thing is, we all went through the same curriculum. In schools, we used to have detail and non-detail. I don't know, you remember, most of you are very young here. So non-detail is storytelling. So when we were kids, we used to make jokes. Non-detail is Nani ki tale. That means Nani stories. So we have Nanas here telling their tales. It's all the storytelling. How your Nana, Nani wrote, you guys wrote, and just putting it together, the thoughts come together. So that's just a suggestion. And Mudezbhai did a very good job on the Maven, and you got a lot of hits also on that.
You don't have
Tell me more
to.
about Maven.
Can you explain more about Maven? What is this?
Yeah, so Maven, that's a platform for teaching. So people do a lot of courses over there. So I teach, I'm doing a course on storytelling with data. It's a 4-day intensive course, which is an online course. And I will be sharing a link with you so he can send it to you. So it has different details about how do you tell, first of all, stories, right? So what is the art of telling stories, and then further talking about data, right? Stuff that you have seen in my book, things like that, but even like something which people can use that in their work. So those are the things which are there. So I'll be sharing the link, so Brother
Sure,
Naeem,
yeah.
and we can, I'll be happy to see more of our community over there, happy to send some discounts, inshallah as well.
So you don't have to jump into writing a book. You can start writing journals, articles, and like Dr. Sab said, write a sentence every day.
Yeah.
Eventually it will become a book. So if you all of us are very technically knowledgeable, experienced, write an article on your technical projects. These are my technical projects. Eventually, I wrote in the journals. This was written 25 years ago, and I still have copies. I can use it. So this is a corporate social responsibility. I have some contribution to this. And then I have written IEEE articles. You have to pay $50 to download that. It's not free. So what I'm saying is, you have industry experience, put it on the paper and make it public. Okay? And that will be a good way of writing books.
If I can ask you, what was your journey into writing?
So experience, same thing. I do all kinds of things and people like it, enjoy it. Then I said maybe I should put them onto paper and make an article, and let everybody know what I did and how you can do. It's not like this, but it's more on the technical side of my profession. And that's how it got inspired. You have a question?
Yeah, another way to encourage writing is writing articles to the newsletters and magazines.
Yes.
Exactly, I wanted to start with writing. You see, if you have a viewpoint, put it on, right? Just try to edit it, then send it to it. After I came here, I went on searching for, is there any newsletter? Don't talk of EIC newsletter. A newspaper, is weekly or monthly or half yearly, coming for the community, there is none in America. You know that? I wanted to write some articles. I was checked, can I write in any of the quarterly or half yearly journal which comes from the Muslim community all over the America? There is none. This actually made me very sad. So many Americans aspiring here for 50 years, and you could not establish one good newspaper there, let alone establishing a university. I wanted to write on it, yes sir.
Just to go back to your question about transformation and change, I would challenge the data analysts here. Take all the videos on YouTube and the views. Take all the WhatsApp videos and their views. Compute that number and then compare it with the number of books and the number of copies sold. I would suggest they're not even close, right? So whether we like it or not, the influence that social media, that's why they're called influencers. The influencers have changed. Okay? Writers will always write, even if they won't have a reader, because it is an urge from within.
Yeah.
Okay? So we know which way the math is, but we also know that there'll always be writers.
So one thing which I try to do is like, writing every day, right? So I'll just read one small para which I wrote yesterday. Abbu, I don't need practice, my 8-year-old said as we were driving to the mosque. He had taken this initiative to organize a small basketball tournament for the little kids and was eager to announce it. I suggested he rehearse what he wanted to say, but he waved it off and I didn't push. After the prayers, he approached the imam and asked for the mic. The imam, a little surprised and confused, smiled at him and handed over him the mic. All the worshippers were now looking at him. After all, this was the first time they've seen a kid asking for a mic, an 8-year-old. Barkhurdar greeted everyone and started speaking, but just a few sentences in and he froze. I stepped in to help him wrap it up. He came to me. Abbu, I forgot everything when I saw people looking at me. This isn't the first time I was hearing this. That's the world of public speaking. Whether you are 8 or 48, the nerves are real, and so is the courage to take a stand. So stand up. So this is what I wrote, right? So this is like writing every day, capturing the memory. So what did I do here? I captured the memory that happened. This is a real thing. Like my wife and my father-in-law, they know like the incident. Now I captured that. The other thing which I also added is, I'm talking about a journey of a Muslim person going to a mosque, normal life, and I'm posting it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, where I've got like thousands of people, non-Muslims and very celebrated people. Now they know like this is kind of a normal, how normal Muslim life is, right? So all of us can do these things. So I just wanted to share like.
You know, just one or see what I've been coming here, but of course, morning coffee group over 3 years together. Something comes to my mind is that such a potential place, a beautiful mosque and elite community. Can you not establish? I suggested to them EIC Academy, under which comes the EIC publications, under which comes the EIC, not this routine newsletter, but a regular national newsletter which goes to every Muslim in America. This only needs a first thought, then an organization, and then start working on it. But what happens is, I am seeing is that when you make a suggestion, immediately one person will say, I had already moved this, but you see this one, some member, this, and then post. That's not the way you progress in things. You built a beautiful mosque, I think. Due regard, compliments to the people who really work for it. But this space needs to be utilized for the community building and for the Muslims, not for the Evergreen Square, for the whole country.
Yes.
So think of something big.
That's what we were thinking. That's what Akhil is all thinking.
But you see,
the
today
board
there is-
member. So we need to take this message to the rest of the.
And you as well, board member.
But I just want also say that the founder of the main key person to make this build and all those things, you're sitting here, Said Malik. He's the one who started
And
that.
Chaudhary is also. he's
Yeah,
an
and
engineer.
there's so many people,
He's-
but that there was one time
He's always working
that
for it.
we needed a leader to build this from ground up, and I had reached out to many people, but I guess Said Malik offered to take the lead. But I just want to.
I just want to, can I say something? Beware of formulas. You know, we give you formulas. If you do this, this will happen. Remember, the best book ever written, the Masnavi, was dictated. Now, wrap your arms around that. He didn't write a line a day. He dictated that
Masnavis by who?
by Rumi. The most popular book in the US, the most popular poetry in the most popular book of all
It was
time.
such a good session, but there is no transmission to the Facebook today.
Okay, so one thing, I want to take this few minutes to give a couple of minutes, Mr. Hafiz Khan Bhai. So Hafiz Khan Bhai talked about something about your translation, your excellent work that you've been doing for 10-15 years. Hafiz Khan Bhai by profession is an engineer, but he got into translation of Quran, and I'm a big fan of his translation. And it's very easy, word by word translation, and it's available in multiple languages. But Hafiz Khan Bhai, what inspired you just to write this? How did you get to this? And how much time do you spend on writing this?
So it's about 30 years now.
30 years.
And I've been involved in working mostly on the Quranic projects. Multiple projects, several of them got completed, some of them are still in progress. At the same time, I have been conducting Quranic understanding Fusha grammar classes in multiple Islamic centers, including MCA, SBIA. And so what happened in the beginning, I started making the videos of my classes and started putting them on YouTube. And now there are more than 4,000 videos on YouTube of my various classes, lectures, khutbahs, at different places, online and in person. And at the same time, so I took the initiative of color coding the Quran. There was a color coding Arabic Urdu Quran in Pakistan done by a scholar that he used two colors to color the English word and the Arabic word against it in the same color and then a different color. So by looking at the color, you can learn the meaning of the Quranic words. So this was done in Urdu, Arabic Urdu, but there was no translation in Arabic English in this format. So I started on that project. It took me several years to complete, one word at a time, highlight one word, give it a color, and the other word in English, highlight the same color. And then I used not anybody's translation, but I used 5 authentic translations to make my own sentences of the translation. But I made sure that the words of the translation that I used in my translation do exist in one of those 5 or 6 translations. I don't make up any of my own words in the translation. So that was the work that was done in Arabic to English. So that's a very unique translation. Nobody ever has any kind of translation where Arabic to English is color coded, the whole Quran. Then I moved on to combining Arabic, English, and Urdu translation, and that was another several years long project that was completed. Then I moved on to working on trilingual Qurans, which means Arabic, English, and a third language. And I started with a friend of mine who was of Chinese origin in Santa Clara. His father did a translation in Chinese language, very authentic translation. So he helped me, he gave me the text format of the Chinese translation of the Quran. So I did that. It took me again several years to do the English, Arabic next to that, and the Chinese next to that. So that was done. All these kept going on the websites. I have about 5 or 6 different websites of Al-Quran. Then I moved on to do the same thing with Bangla. And there are some Bangla speaking brothers who helped me and verified and proofread my Bangla trilingual translations. Then I moved on to the Spanish, and there was another brother from the Spanish speaking language, he did that. So these were three main trilingual translations. And then there was a lady in India, she contacted me, and she said, you know, she read my all these books and websites, and she said, you know, in those states in India where Urdu is not the language is Telugu and Tamil and Kannada and all those, but because of the Bollywood, people can understand Urdu there. Because Bollywood videos and songs and movies have penetrated into those regions. So she said, why don't I help you and you do a transliteration of Urdu with English and Arabic. So then I started working on these 3 columns Quran, where it was Arabic language, word by word, and it was the Urdu transliteration, and then the Urdu language next to that, and the English. And she proofread, she helped me a lot on that one. For some reason, she had some family issues. It was more than 2/3 of the Quran, it never got completed. Then I started doing my own, but didn't get time to finish that, so this is still an unfinished project. Maybe if I get some time. Then I started moving into the printing of these books and these Qurans, and many, for the last 2 years I have been doing the printing, local printers, and brother Mukhtar has been helping me. Then in Pakistan, there's a very famous printing press, they started printing these books, and brother Asad helped me in that.
These books are being used in Pakistan, madrasas?
Yeah, and they were, and several thousand were printed for the learning how to start for the small children and up to the elders, how to learn the rules of the recitation and how to recite these things, and the translation and how to perform the prayer with the translation. And several thousand of these books have been distributed into the madrasas of Pakistan, in Gilgit, in Sindh, and all that was financed by the people here.
Yes, so if you want to finance the translation and
all
printing.
the brothers, many brothers here financed these projects, and these books were printed there and were given to those places, those schools where there is poverty and there is not a funding by the government or anything. So many brothers here have contacts back home, especially like Mukhtar and Asad and many other, what's his name? So several brothers here got these books printed and sent to their local schools. So that project is still going on. So inshallah. And now I also did some very enhanced work on Tafhimul Quran of Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi. I added the color-coded translation into the tafsir. And there was like 6 volumes and I did that in English, Arabic, and a third combination of English, Arabic, and Urdu. So that is being reviewed by a printing press in Pakistan right now for printing. So when Alhamdulillah, Allah gave me the opportunity after I retired, like during COVID, I spent full time in doing these things.
So if you want to write this in regional languages in India, please let us know, we can help you.
Definitely, I am actually looking for
especially
someone to
in Tamil, in Tamil Nadu, we can help you, and Hyderabad also. So keep that in mind. This is a very good book. Mukhtar bhai.
I just have one comment for Hafiz bhai. You know, he said he has produced 4,000 videos and so many translations. So I was reflecting on it one day, he mentioned this before too. To produce just 4,000 videos, if you think about it, if I do one video a day,
4,000 days, a lot of years.
At least 10 years,
Yeah.
non-stop.
Yeah, it's been
Every
going
day,
on,
right?
like nowadays,
But not
it's-
only that, the other books that you, I mean, I don't know how much time.
I
where
would
you
spend
get
full
it.
time now, you know, my just wife just feels alone.
Just so inspirational. I said there's a printing press, but you know, you are also video press, you know, you are
Yeah.
video studio.
And currently, about on the average, 3 videos every week are going on
Yeah.
YouTube. One is the session which I do with Falsam in Tafsir of Quran. That is recorded and put on the YouTube. And my Sunday class here is recorded and put on the YouTube. And then I have 2 regular khutbahs, one here, one at Silver Creek Musalla. So all these are videos recorded and they go on the YouTube. Mashallah, a lot of
really-
viewing is happening
Yeah,
on
there are
this.
working for that. I think the reason I brought it up, I want to connect the earlier discussion when we were talking about the media, the digital media that I think is very powerful today. Well, what is the goal? We want all this to get to the people in their hands and their minds. Even when Dr. was saying that articles, right? You don't need the formal newspaper today. I don't think there's anything wrong with reaching out through WhatsApp. If there's a small article, people will read it. And it's very powerful in terms of quick, but you want to give that message. There are so many forwarded messages, but if it's something original coming from you,
But how do you find out which is the worthy?
that's to you. No, I'm saying you. For you to reach out, I think these are the
I know,
platforms
but
that
people, the moment it's longer the
Uh,
message, they say automatically they
that
get.
is the thing, right?
Mukhtar
How do
bhai,
you- how do
he's
you-
already hinted me.
Yeah, how do you put that precise, small, thoughtful and impactful message? Doesn't need to be 5 pages. What is the gist of it that you want to convey?
So last question, Tasdiq bhai.
The question for all of you, does government read the book before allowing it to go to the public?
Not in the US, but maybe in Pakistan, yes. I cannot print a Quran there on my own. I have to get the approval from the government to print it because simple reason that at one time many printing presses in Pakistan started printing the books with the errors in them.
Yeah.
So government put a restriction that any printing press that is going to print a Quranic material has to get the review and the approval of the government.
Which is the right thing.
But here, it's open market, open world.
Okay, with that, I would like to thank the panelists and thank Gulrez Khan and Sister Saeed who came all the way from Fremont in the Fajr time. And I also encourage you to buy this book, and I am buying this set, $25. And people who have already bought the book, and you can tell them how to pay. How,
If you could share. Thank you immensely for organizing this.
Yeah, Jazakallah.
Inshallah, we'll do a bigger event, longer event for a longer audience, people who don't wake up.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
How long is it?
Pay by Zelle or Zelle से भी कर सकते हैं.
Card line, yeah. क्या हुई बात?
So these are available at table?
It's online, right, to support Amazon. We have our own website, I have copies with me. That's the best way to use Amazon.
Yeah, we'll have to, thank you. Yeah, this is very inspiring, this is very important. Actually. Come, machine gun.
That's true. That's the reason I'm putting on Amazon.
Beautiful book. Write a review.
Yes, I will.
Amazon पे write a review.
Yeah, I got it from Amazon.
Those things are.
इसको रोक दूं मैं? ये कर दीजिए आप. ये क्या?
Low quality.
Translate Tamil.
आप finish